Vice President Kamala Harris is set to debate former President Donald Trump.
Yes, Doug Luzader, as the countdown continues, joining us from Washington. Doug, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, before we dig in, are we sure that this debate is actually going to happen?
No, we're not. I mean, you look at the three parties involved here. You've got the Harris campaign, the Trump campaign, and ABC, the host network. ABC thinks they've got an agreement. The Trump campaign thinks they've got an agreement. The Harris campaign, they're still trying to press for these rule changes involving how the microphones are handled. So we think this is going to happen in a week, but it's just not entirely clear that everyone will agree to these ground rules. So while the debate stage is apparently reserved and ready to go in Philadelphia, it's a question of who's going to be on it.
That's interesting. Okay. And debate or no debate, voting's going to take place regardless. And early voting, in fact, will start in just a few days in some states. So what do the polls tell us about maybe how people are feeling at this point?
Well, it's awfully tight. Everything seems to be within the margin of error, not just the national polls, but even when you really look at these swing states. Now, it is very evident that Kamala Harris, her addition to the ticket, has made a lot of these states a lot more competitive. I mean, Trump had been building some leads in some of these swing states. They were small leads, but they were leads. Now everything seems to be kind of dead even again. And in fact, in some of these polls, Harris is even up, but still often within the margin of error. So something like a debate could have a big impact if it happens.
How much faith can we put into these polls? Obviously, in 2016, a lot of people learned how wrong they can be and the tendency that they seem to underestimate Trump voters. So how much stock do we put into them this election cycle?
Yeah. For whatever reason, Trump voters have been more difficult to get accurate polling information from. Now, that was clearly evident in 2016. In 2020, even though the polls had Biden leading, which ended up being accurate, they kind of overstated the lead that he had, and the race ended up being closer than expected. So once again, it seemed as though many polls were kind of undercounting the number of Trump supporters out there. So I think with each election, these pollsters try to figure out how to reach those voters and make sure that they're counting them accurately. But it's a challenge, and it's something of an unknown.
B1 family, welcome to Black Logic. Today we're just going to break down elections. We're going to have a concentration on polling. I think is important because some people will use the term, and I've used the term before, that your vote necessarily doesn't count. Your single vote necessarily doesn't count, but as a collaborative group, it does count. It does carry weight of influence when it comes to the conjoining of the electoral college, right? It's persuasive. And more times than not, the majority of a vote in a particular region, in a particular district, in a particular jurisdiction does count for the electoral college, but it gets more complicated than that. And this is the way that the founding fathers did this, by the way of the Constitution, which I always think that the Constitution needs to be updated, needs to be revised. The Constitution is not a perfect document. Not whatsoever. Not whatsoever. So we're going to get into this, family, because I think it's utterly important that we truly understand how elections work. And we won't be here that long. But first, the polling is another good indicator as we compare these two candidates, Kamala Harris, as well as former President Trump. Okay, the VP Kamala Harris and the former President Trump. Now, let's look at this very quickly, family. Let's look at this. We have masterclass.com. They talk about all the different types of polls. The three, or the four rather, I want to focus on is the benchmark polls, the brush fire polls, and the tracking polls, and the exit polls. Here in the highlighted, it states that the such polls are conducted at the beginning of a campaign to establish baseline levels of voters' perception, knowledge, and opinions of a candidate. This is a strategy that both political parties use in order to see what voters want them to say, how voters want them to act, even down to what are they wearing, what neighborhoods or areas that they go into. That's why presidential candidates never go inside of every state. They never go inside of every city or every jurisdiction to a certain degree. They have these analytics and metrics to guide them, and they use polls. So polls is a very large part of elections, especially on the federal level, just as well as the state, but especially on the federal level, because we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. They're almost stating that this election alone is roughly accumulating to $10 billion, okay? $10 billion, all the special interest group, all the corporate groups, individuals, private donors, you name it, $10 billion is being spent. And you would think that, I won't go there just yet. I won't go there. Brush fire polls gauge changes in voter sentiment during a race. A common brush fire poll seeks to measure a candidate's popularity by checking favorable and unfavorable ratings. Now, when the race was between Biden and Trump, you see Biden brush fire polls decrease significantly, especially with the uptick of illegal immigrants inside of the country. So people were either leaning at home or they were leaning more so to the Republican Party, mainly Donald Trump, voting for Donald Trump to close these borders. Now that Kamala Harris is in the race, there has been an uptick and increase in voter favorability towards the Democratic Party because of Kamala Harris. Now, I do know why. I was about to say, I don't know why that is, but I do know why, family. There's a couple of things. It's not because of her policies. The American people are still waiting. They're still waiting. They're still waiting for her policies. There has nothing been concrete. Yeah, there's been rumors. There's been scuttlebutts. There's been hints. There's been whispers of certain things she may or may not do. And we're going to show a couple of clips of her interview with Dana Bash of CNN. We're going to get into that. But the only true factual or political policies that have been recorded to date between the two candidates is by Donald Trump, by the way of his Agenda 47. We're not going to get into rhetoric. We're not going to get into biases. We're going to get into factual information here on Black Logic, because what seems to be, and it mostly comes from the Democratic Party, sometimes the Republican Party, okay, family? I'm no Republican or Democrat. I'm just on Black empowerment. They try to fearmonger you and say that Donald Trump is going to implement Project 2025, which was created by the Heritage Foundation, okay? Which, by the way, are mostly conservative-leaning political think tankers, so to speak, to change the government and change the republic as we know it. And that's another thing. We're going to get into that as well. When it comes to the Constitution, you keep hearing that this is a democracy. This is the democracy. This is the democracy. Family, we do not have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic, okay? According to the U.S. Constitution. Tracking polls, shorter, smaller polls conducted daily among the same universe of voters at key periods and primaries or general elections to track how their perceptions, attitudes, and opinions about a candidate change. Because people change their opinion day to day, depending on, did Donald Trump do something illicit? Did Kamala Harris cackle herself off stage? Did she avoid questions? Did she avoid the media? Did Donald Trump send a barrage of people on January 6th? So depending on the information, voters are swaying and changing, especially those who are on the fence of how they're going to vote, if they're going to vote at all. Exit polls, surveys given to voters exiting polling locations on election day. These are the people who are outside once you already cast your vote. Say, who did you vote for today? And this is all data. This is all data that they collect to essentially learn how people came to their decision for future metrics on how they will garnish and galvanize votes for their political party. That's basically what that is. These polls are only useful in retrospect to learn from the past, those lessons learned, okay? They also help media outlets predict final results before the polls close. This is not to say the exit polls always accurately forecast the actual results. So that's what we're talking about when it comes to polling of these different political parties. We're going to get a little bit more into it because I really want to break this down, but it won't be that complicated, family. I won't do that to you because this can get really, really tedious of how they went about this whole polling thing. Okay. It says all good polling relies on statistical adjustment called weighting, which makes sure the survey sampling aligns with the broader population on key characteristics. Okay. And right here, roughly a third of eligible American voters do not vote in the presidential election. So we're talking about a third of people that probably, including me, they probably have my name in bold, italicized, and underlined, because unless something's on the table for Black Americans, your boy won't be voting. Okay. And a lot of people, oh, you should vote. If you don't vote, that's a vote for Trump. If you don't vote, that's a vote for Kamala. That's poppycock, family. When you don't vote, you don't vote. It's not a vote for somebody else. They said, you know what? Black Logic didn't vote, so that's a vote for Trump. Yeah, that's mathematically impossible. Okay, as my geometry teacher told me, what are you doing here? These results, this answer you have is mathematically impossible to come to that conclusion. You're just writing down anything. Now, how accurate are polls? Polls are used for all kinds of purposes. In addition to showing who's ahead and who's behind in a campaign, fair or not, however, the accuracy of election polling is usually judged by how closely the polls match the outcome of the election. And this is from the previous election between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And what they're showing here is during the 2020 polls, there was an overstatement of a margin at 3.9% that Biden was over Donald Trump. Okay, it says over Trump in the national popular vote by 3.9%. But again, they're stating that was an overestimation. It goes on to state here, by the standard polling in 2016 and 2020 performed poorly because it was a lot closer than the margins actually showed. Polls conducted in the last 2 weeks before the election suggested that Biden's margin over Trump was nearly twice as large as it ended up being in the final national vote tally. So we understand there's been all sorts of accusations of voter fraud and ballot fraud and all sorts of ill will things that people are doing with these particular elections for their political party to get inside of office. Now, I know you guys are familiar with certain maps like this, where it shows each state in the amount of electoral votes that they have, aka delegates, that they need to accumulate to the special number 270 to win. Now, currently, according to 270towin.com, the Democrats are leading 226 above the Republicans at 219. Now, as you can tell here, Democrats are in blue, Republicans are in red, and the toss-ups are in that light tannish color. Now, we're looking at majority of America where it seems to be Republican, okay? But what we have to understand is these are very low populated states. So they do not carry as many electoral college votes than a California, a New York, Virginia, etc., North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and especially Texas. California coming in first with 54, Texas coming in second with 40. So all of these electoral college votes mean something to your national popular vote. But we're going to dive a little deeper here, okay? We're going to dive a little deeper here, and we're going to look at what it really takes to win this 270 votes. So again, Republicans are 51 votes away when it comes to electoral college votes, and Democrats are 44 away, okay? Now, here are the latest polls. Now, supposedly, the last news updates that I've been receiving is that they're pretty much neck and neck. But according to Project 538, we see that Kamala Harris is roughly about 4%, okay, roughly 3.5% higher than Donald Trump in the national polls as of today, of September 2nd, September 3rd. That is where she's leading Trump. Okay, so that's pretty much a large difference, because when you look at it, someone can essentially win the presidency by 0.03% more votes than the opposing candidate. So that's something to keep in mind as well. We're going to look at some of these other polls. You're getting a crash course in election when it comes to the federal level, family. So take your notes, take a mind state, think about it. Do voters want Republicans or Democrats in Congress? Look at this. Do voters want Republicans or Democrats in Congress? So we see that majority of, and this is as September 3rd, as you see here, that the majority of the public, or the majority of people who took the polls, want Democrats in office by a whopping 2.6%. Or we can roughly just say 3%. But majority of Americans who took the polls want Democrats in office. Okay. Now, do Americans have a favorable opinion of Kamala Harris? Absolutely not. Now, most people are, it's only about 0.5% that they're stating that she's unfavorable. 46.3% stating favorable. Okay. And while the other 46.8% saying unfavorable. Okay. I kind of want you to keep this a mental note of those numbers, because now we're going to Donald Trump. Okay. Any day now. There we go. 43% says favorable, while 52.5% says unfavorable. Did you know, family, that a lot of elections are emotion based? Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that a lot of elections are very, very emotional based? A lot of people are just voting off how they feel about a certain candidate. That's what we're getting at here, family. A lot of people are voting off how they feel about a particular candidate. I think that's significant to mention, because no one is worried about actual policies and what one particular candidate may do better or may impose versus their opponent. We don't like Donald Trump because of ABC. We don't like Kamala Harris because of 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be. That's where the American people, and it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's the reality that we live in, is it not? A lot of people are going inside of the voter booth, okay, emotionally charged. They're not going in with statistical information. They're not going in with a sheet of paper that shows them candidate A, Kamala Harris, these are her policies, and this is how it's going to affect the American people. Candidate B, Donald Trump, a list of his policy, and this is the impact that it's going to have on the American people. No one is doing that. I don't like Trump because of January 6th. I don't like Donald Trump because of what he said of the Central Park 5. I don't like Donald Trump because of his housing crisis. Oh, well, I don't like Kamala Harris because I can't understand if she's black or Southern Indian. I just don't know. I don't know what she stands for. I don't know anything about Kamala Harris. So I don't feel solidified in my choosing of Kamala Harris. That's where a majority of people are at. They're basing things off of feelings. I wonder if anyone are going to base their vote, if they're going to vote, off what the candidate says they're going to do. And how. This is the big one I've always been wanting political candidates to do, is post how you're going to do it. Yeah. We tell people things all the time. Yeah, man, I'm going to be there. Well, how you going to make it here at 3 a.m. and you 6 hours away and you're driving. How are you going to do that? No, don't worry about it. I'm going to be there. How? How are you going to implement these policies? Let's move on. Now, this is a big part here, family, that I want you guys to truly understand. And I'm going to try to break this down as much as I can. Okay. It states here that it is important to remember that the president, okay, is not chosen by a national popular vote, because everybody was trying to understand how in the hell did Donald Trump win the presidency when he did not win the national popular vote. Well, according to the U.S. government, nationalarchives.gov, it is important to remember that the president is not chosen by a national popular vote. It is not. The Electoral College vote totals determine the winner. The Electoral College vote determines the winner, not the statistical plurality or majority a candidate may have in the national popular vote totals. Electoral College votes are awarded on the basis of the popular vote in each state. Now, isn't that redundant as hell? Isn't that contradicting in a sense? Like, it's telling you that on one hand, it's not chosen by the popular vote. It's chosen by the Electoral College vote. But Electoral College votes are awarded on the basis of the popular vote in each state. So a lot of people are trying to wonder, how does that compute? Like, what are we talking about here? What in red tarnation is going on? Because what I'm thinking about this, family, is that this is a situation that's very unique to the United States of America. And it's the result of an unusual feature of the way that America elects presidents. The Electoral College, and I would try to give a simplified explanation, if I will. Okay, because all the vivid details is really not needed to really comb through this for you guys to understand. The U.S. does not have a direct election for president by voters. It does not. Each state is allotted a certain number of electoral votes, which are actually cast by representatives selected for the job. States with larger populations like a California or Texas get more electoral votes, though it's not strictly proportional. And again, we will have to reference the Constitution if we want to get into the vivid details of that, because here's how the situation described can actually happen, right? With a couple of minor exceptions. A winner-take-all deal, okay? This is an example in practical terms. The election for president has only two candidates. Again, this is an example. It only has two candidates. In this case, is actually factual because RFK Jr. dropped out. Now, even if others are on the ballot in each state, like a Kanye West is on the ballot, in each state, either a Republican or Democrat will get a majority of the people's vote. The state electors are all pledged to vote for that candidate. You still with me? In each state, either a Republican or Democrat will get a majority of the people's vote. The state's electors are pledged to vote for that candidate, and the electors are the ones who are carrying the electoral votes. They're the ones who are casting the electoral votes. And some of you are asking, I asked the same question, who are the electors? They actually don't reveal who the electors are until after the election, okay? Stay with me. So they pledge to vote for that candidate. So the next question would be, so how does the contradictory vote happen? As we just stated, according to the nationalarchives.gov. Imagine that there are 50 states and each state has 20 electoral votes. Candidate A wins the majority vote in 30 states. Listen, Candidate A wins the majority of votes in 30 states, but by a 2-point margin. So they win the majority of votes in 30 states by a 2-point margin. Now, that is every race ends with 51-49 victory for candidate A. So 30 states, 2-point margin, 51-49. Candidate B wins all the other states, but with a 90-point margin. So a 99-1 victory. Candidate A will then receive fewer votes from individual voters, but more electoral votes than candidate B. Now, of course, in the real world, the arithmetic is more complicated because not all states are winner take all. Electoral votes are not directly proportional to state populations, and different states essentially have different numbers of electoral votes that are available. But the concept is the same. Why in the hell did the founding fathers make it this difficult? I mean, because at the end of the day, when Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but Donald Trump had the majority of electoral votes, there lies your answer. So when people say your vote doesn't count, it does. It is a persuasive measure, especially when other people are collaborative in their voting, to persuade the electors who hold the electoral vote to cast that vote for the candidate that majority of the people in that state voted for. It makes me go back one. It makes me go back to this map. So when you look at electoral votes, some people are just, they're kind of gauging the presidential election by the colors of the map. Oh, wow. So Donald Trump is going to win the presidency because he got Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma, etc., Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, all the states that no black person want to be. No, I'm kidding. It's kind of rhyme. I went with it. Bars. But nonetheless, when you look at California, 54 electorals, VA, 13, New York, 28. So when I look at the amount of electoral votes that candidates can essentially get, you cannot go off the representation of a map. You have to go off the sheer number of electoral votes that is persuaded by, persuaded by the popular vote. Because Hillary Clinton won the national popular vote, but she didn't get the electoral college votes. And that's why she didn't become president. Yeah. I know some things like this could be very difficult to understand, especially the whole breakdown. Hopefully I didn't lose anyone, but I'm really trying to give you how elections on a federal level run in a nutshell. Okay. So let's look into some of the policies. Okay. Let's look at some of the policies and how NBC I really dislike partisan news agencies because they swing one way. On electric vehicles, Kamala Harris, she prioritized electric vehicles in her 2020 campaign. I'm not going to read all of this. You can read this for yourselves. Let me blow this up a little bit more, family. Okay, let me put myself down here. No, let me do this so you guys can really see this, okay? It says that Donald Trump is a threat to the auto industry. Trump has centered Biden electric vehicle efforts in the campaign as a threat to the auto industry and U.S. economy as a whole, pledging to repeal all Biden's efforts in this space. He has said he is not against electric vehicles themselves, but has portrayed them as less reliable than gas-powered counterparts. Now, the only reason why I'm not essentially reading what Kamala Harris has put or what they believe her stance on electric vehicles is because, for one, and not that I'm agreeing with Trump, I'm agreeing with what I know with my own two eyes and what you guys know as well. Either you're with the whole Tesla infrastructure of charging your vehicle, which does sort of cover the entire United States of America, that you can drive from California to New York, it's possible. But you have to travel the way Tesla wants you to travel, because the infrastructure of America is built off of gas. Now, slowly but surely, the infrastructure will be upgraded to support electric vehicles. And then from that moment on, we have to decide if it's going to be that whole CCS charging port or a proprietary charging port of a vehicle from a different manufacturer, and the list goes on and on. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? You got a Tesla, so they have this fast charge and they can charge 80% in 30 to 45 minutes, but then you went out and bought a Lucid, but Lucid don't have the CCS charging port, so now you have to get an adapter in order to charge on a Tesla charging port. Again, America has not yet upgraded the infrastructure for electric vehicles. That's just the truth of it. Case in point, Apple. Let's talk about Apple versus Google or versus Android. Every device out there, family, every device out there is using USB-C, okay? USB-C charging port. And Apple, I think overseas, some overseas people did a court case, and now Apple got to make all their products in USB-C because Apple had the lightning thread or you guys know what I'm talking about, you guys with Apple, okay? I've always been an Android guy. I love Android. I've been back and forth with Pixels and Samsungs. You know, I got the Fold here. Love the Fold. I love it. I don't know why. It's just, but you got to have a ring on it, because if you don't have a ring on it, you're going to lose it. It's kind of like, you can use that analogy when it comes to putting a ring on your girlfriend or your fiance. No, I'm off it. What we also have to understand too, family, when it comes to electric vehicles in general, and that's what we're talking about here, the differences in electric vehicle. They're stating that he's a threat to the electric vehicles, which he stated that he's not against. But America is 100% supported by gasoline vehicles. And I'm a lover of electric vehicles myself. I love gas. I love electric because of the technology. But here's the thing about electric vehicles. For one, majority of electric vehicles are 2 times the amount of a gas-powered vehicle. Let's take, for instance, if you bought a Honda Accord brand new, 25 grand, maybe you got the sports edition, and then they made the electrical version. That vehicle would then go significantly up to around anywhere from $30,000 to $43,000, okay, for a Honda Accord. And people are like, I'm not buying a $45,000 Honda Accord just because it's electric. Then later on, when the battery span of that, the battery life decreases each and every year, okay? I'm just making a case about this. And here's what we need to understand. When I lived up in Washington State, I went to the oldest private car museum in the world. It was called the LeMay Collection. And there I saw one of the first electric vehicles. Where is it at? Excuse me. I saw one of the first electric vehicles. It wasn't this one. This one came around 1884. But here, the first electric vehicle was actually invented in 1832. It wasn't by Tesla, okay? This technology is hundreds of years old when it comes to electric vehicles. So some people will really try to say, oh, and this is again by the Department of Energy.gov, where this information is coming from. They could have been, if they thought it was beneficial to America or beneficial to large corporations to build the electrical grid, they would have. Here's another important thing that I want to point out: electric vehicles. I don't know why I'm staying here so long, but I just want to point these things out. I asked someone, you have an electric vehicle, and that is going to save the atmosphere, the stratosphere, on the carbon footprint in the world. So I asked them, where do we get electricity from? Ask someone this question, this a random person, where do we get electricity from? Now, if you get some smart guys, they would tell you that they get it from wind turbine engines. Okay, they generate electricity. But did you know that wind turbines are actually powered by electricity? I digress. Then they would say, oh, solar panels. That's where they get electric power from. But where were we getting electric power before solar panels? Where are we sitting at majority of our electric power? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Most electrical power plants are powered by natural gas. Where is natural gas found? Natural gas is most likely found above oil deposits, oil reserves. There's always a large amount of natural gas that hovers and created by oil deposit and oil reserve. So again, electricity is created by natural resources. We're not this Thor, the god of thunder and lightning, and we are extracting and exuding and collecting electricity every time there's a thunderstorm. No, we're actually using crude earth materials. What's the word I'm looking for? I know you guys know what I'm referring to. But anyway, I digress. Let me move on. Housing. Harris has taken a prominent role as vice president advocating for federal programs to expand access to affordable housing and reduce homelessness, being the public face of several announcements by the White House. Trump officially said he will lower housing costs by encouraging the construction of new housing on the peripheral of cities and suburban areas where land is cheapest, and cancel Biden's anti-suburban housing regulation. Okay. Social Security. This is a lot of what people are stating. Kamala Harris says no benefit cuts. The Biden White House budget calls for no benefit cuts and would raise taxes on upper earners to fund the long-term shortfall, as the White House put into his March proposal. They said that Trump muddled this. In March, he said he doesn't favor any benefit cuts. I will never do anything that would jeopardize or hurt Social Security or Medicare. This is what they saying Trump said. He's not going to hurt Social Security or Medicare. So when people say, well, Trump talking about he going to cut Social Security. Days earlier, he was asked about the future of programs like Social Security and said, there is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting. He has not proposed a plan to cover long-term solvency issues of Social Security. The White House, this is Kamala Harris' side, also called for improving some Social Security benefits, include supplemental income for seniors and disabled people. Okay. Taxes. Harris calls for the repealing the entire Trump tax cuts as presidential candidate in 2020. Biden has called for unwinding those tax breaks for Americans making more than $400,000 and raising the corporate tax rate from 21 to 28%. His platform also proposes a $3,600 per child tax. Okay. Trump favors extending the Trump tax cuts if he's elected, according to campaign officials. Trade, no across the board tariffs. The Biden administration has opposed across the board tariffs, but favors some targeted tariffs, such as steel and aluminum. Trump proposed to impose a 10% tariff across all imported goods. Trump told Fox News in February that it could be 60%, maybe even more than that, on import of Chinese goods. Trump is a longtime spectator of trade deals. Education, family, if you guys want to go and reference this, you see here's at NBCnews.com, and they're pretty about going back and forth with the comparisons of their policies. And again, don't forget that NBC sway, they say independent, but they sway, in my opinion, democratically. Okay. Student loan debt. Trump says no forgiveness. Can I give you my personal opinion? You guys don't beat me up about this. Can I do that, family? Now, I know a lot of you who went to school will love for the federal government to just sign away your student debt. They would just, you know what, you don't owe anymore. And some of you have already had your student debt. And I get it. I absolutely get it. If I had $70,000 in student debt, and Kamala Harris is referring to coming inside the Oval Office saying that I'm going to wipe away 10,000, all of your student debt, if you can, show that you are impoverished or that your student debt is crippling you for doing great and wonderful things, then I will probably incline to look at Kamala Harris and see how that's going to pan out. May make me lean a certain way or not. But it states here that Harris has supported the Biden administration move to provide more than $100 billion in student debt relief and has specifically argued in favor of student debt relief for public servants. Sounds like people who work for the government, but okay. Or maybe people who, let me dial back. Police officers, firemen, nurses, doctors, and other sorts of public servants, okay? Trump has pushed for cuts to programs that assist with student loan forgiveness, but did suspend interest on student loan payments during the coronavirus pandemic. After the Supreme Court blocked Biden's student loan forgiveness plan, Trump said in June of 23 campaign event that Biden's plan would have been very unfair to the millions of people who have paid their debt through hard work and diligence. I want you to think about those of you who had to pay a large sum or all of your student debt. Are they going to give you a refund? Are they going to give you a stimulus education loan refund of sorts? I'm just asking questions. Let me see who I got with me here. I see I have Louis Knowles, L.A. Knott, Jermaine Anderson. Thank you for moderating, sir. My warrior brother DSB, thank you for moderating as well. MD Williams, Jay the Informant. I see everybody's in the room. I see Volvo 2. Okay. Black Hunter 88. Jay the Informant say they already promoted that during the Biden lying term. Okay. He said, it's very confusing. We're talking about the Electoral College votes. Yeah, it's very, very confusing, family. It's very confusing. But again, I know a lot of people may, let me blow this up for you guys who can't see. This may be significant for some people, but believe it or not, family, when it comes to international tariffs and import and export tax, majority of Americans are not really looking at this like that. They're not really looking at what are they doing with China. This is what the majority of Americans are looking at. And again, this is very opinionated. You guys are looking at the types of jobs that you guys can get or receive and the salaries and wages that you can receive and benefit from. Housing costs, whether you have a house looking to buy another house or move into another house, or you're looking for your first house, etc. Housing costs are up 100, 200, 300%. Some people bought their house in 2020 and paid $350,000 for that home. Year to date, or rather this year, those same houses cost $700,000. They cost $500,000. So we're talking about anywhere an uptick and increase from $150,000 to $300,000 to $400,000 for the exact same house you was going to buy in 2020. So you mean to tell me that the drywall, the wood studs, the roofing shingles, the windows are now $200,000 to $300,000 more? And again, a lot of housing prices does have to do what city, what state, what area you live in. But again, majority of houses has went up almost $150,000 across the board. I was looking at buying rental property, my wife and I, in 2020. Oh, I'm sorry, in 2022. Or was it 21? Nonetheless, those homes were $50,000. We looked on the same site. These same exact homes that nobody had bought yet are $150,000. I'm not kidding, family. I'm not kidding. So again, a lot of these things may be significant for certain people. This is interesting. Let's look at this. Israel and Gaza, support and some criticism. The top line is that Harris has backed the Biden administration's fundamental approach to the war in Gaza, push for de-escalation, help broker a ceasefire that includes the return of hostages, and promote a two-state solution. But Harris, who argues for Israel's right to self-defense and the elimination of Hamas, has also shown signs that she's more in line with progressive than Biden is. Let's see, civil rights movement. She called the situation in Gaza a humanitarian catastrophe and called an immediate but temporary ceasefire. Okay, and then Trump states that the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel never would have happened if he was president. Trump insists he has pushed for a quick end to the war, telling conservative radio host Hugh Hewitt in April they have to get it done, get it over with, and get it over with fast. He has not said under what condition Israel should agree to stop its military campaign, but he has not suggested any support for Palestinians. You know what I found out? I don't know if you guys are familiar with a certain politician. I forget his name. But he stated on one of his comedy shows that Palestinians and Jewish people are both Semitic people. And I can't break that down. I'm not too familiar with who's Semitic, who's not Semitic. But he gave a historical breakdown of who is Semitic, who is not Semitic, and how Palestinians are Semitic people. So when they state that someone or the Hamas terrorist group or Palestinians or Muslims or whoever are anti-Semitic, that's very false. In his, I should supply you guys with that comedian's name. Very funny, but he does a lot of political jokes. He does a lot of very intelligent sort of comedy, I would say. But it was very entertaining. It was very entertaining. But yeah, family, if you guys want to go down and kind of do the comparison on their stances, like they had their stances, whether it be Ukraine, aid as a loan. Listen, Trump is not playing around when it comes to money coming from America. He's not just going to sign checks to these foreign countries and get nothing in return. You see what I'm saying, family? Because America is a business itself. United States Corporation is a business itself. And Trump said, yeah, we'll give him some money, but it's going to be a loan. Trump has said that if elected, he'll stop the war between Ukraine and Russia within 24 hours. He also states here throughout his presidency, Trump sought to remain on good terms with Putin. They had to put him in there on the eve of Russia's invasion. Okay. But of course, we understand, depending on what political party you sway to and from, the Democrats have just given a blank check to the Ukrainians, right? Every time they need money, they call up the U.S. and we send billions of dollars. Trump is at least stating, which I still don't agree with that either, of giving them a loan, okay? This is one of the situations where I look at him and say, you probably should hold your own nuts on this, okay? Because when you look at the mass amount of homelessness that we have in America, when you look at the onslaught of the massive amount of illegal immigration and the amount of border patrol, technology, AI, personnel that we're going to need to implement and hire, we need those billions of dollars to supply those jobs to secure our border. That's what I'm getting at. Let me move on, family. I didn't want to stay there that long, but I did. I really wanted to comb through the Constitution very quickly. I don't know if you guys ever comb through the Constitution, but that's what we're going to do very quickly. I won't be here before you long because a lot of people say a lot of things and no one ever goes through the Constitution and read what it actually says. This is coming from archives.gov. Okay. That's the preamble. We are the people, form a perfect union, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I have a couple of things highlighted that I'm going to go over here. This is coming from section 3. It says no person should be a senator who shall not have attained the age of 30 years and been 9 years as a citizen of the United States. The vice president of the United States should be president of the Senate, but doesn't have a vote unless they be equally divided. The Senate shall have the sole power to try all impeachments. Okay. I'm just highlighting a key factors here, family. Again, if you want the full context of the Constitution, give yourself about 30 minutes and just read the Constitution. It is very important for you to understand this document that really governs the way that America runs itself, or how it proposed to run itself. Okay. Section 6. The senators and representatives shall receive a compensation for their services to be ascertained by law and paid out of the treasury of the United States. They shall, in cases except treason, felony, and breach of peace, be privileged from arrest during the attendance at the sessions of their respective house. Now, I know a lot of you guys understood why I highlighted breach of peace, because that are some of the charges that they are imposing on Donald Trump, because the breach of peace, when it comes to the federal regulation of running the government by the way of him inciting a riot, or inciting a mob, or inciting a group of protesters or rioters or terrorists, however people label these guys, I don't care. On January 6th, on the Capitol. So that's why they're trying to give him a breach of peace, because according to the Constitution, then he can definitely be brought up on charges. Okay. And here's something else I want you guys to hone in on as well. We're in the Constitution, section 6. I highlighted the word he. Nowhere in the Constitution that I could find was the word she. And this is why I stated that the Constitution needs to be updated. It needs to be edited. It needs to be amended. Something needs to change, because supposedly only a male can be president of the United States of America. I'll show you. Okay. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to go down here a little bit, families. Bear with me. Section 10. No state shall enter. Now, on this particular part of the Constitution, speaks directly to the situation of the Jewish state of Israel and the country of Palestine. I'm not going to comment on the people. I'm not going to comment on the actions. I'm just going to tell you that one group of people was there before another group of people was there. And this is why America has put this into the Constitution, so it never happens in America. Listen, look at this, family. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills or credit, make anything but gold and silver. I misspoke. This is about gold and silver in the legal currencies, but it's coming. The point I'm getting to is coming. Okay, the executive power should be vested in a president of the United States of America. He shall hold his office. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with the vice president chosen for the same term. Now, if you notice, the vice president doesn't pertain to sex, but the president does. I'm not saying they're going to bring this up, because if this was the case, family, Kamala Harris probably wouldn't even be able to run if they were holding her true to the Constitution of the United States. So again, we follow the Constitution. We talk about the founding fathers and the Constitution, but no one's really following it, because then they will have to amend it, right? I digress. All right. No person except a natural born citizen or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of president. Neither shall any person be eligible to the office who shall not have attained the age of 35 and been 14 years as a resident within the United States. What is that saying? You can become a citizen and become the president? I thought only a natural born citizen could be the president of the United States of America. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let me get to this part over here. Did you guys know this? Section 2 of the Constitution. The president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into actual service of the United States. So the president doesn't have jurisdiction, or the president is not the commander-in-chief of all the armed forces, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard. I'm just reading what the Constitution has. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I missed something. I'm just reading the Constitution as we see it. Now, of course, here you see me highlighting the word he over and over again. I wanted to show you that they don't have she, her, him, them, nothing within the Constitution. Okay. Let me see if I have any more highlights in here, family, because I read this again. Here we go. This is the part that speaks to the Jewish Palestine / Hamas situation. Okay, as I stated before, one group of people was there before another group of people that they live in the same land region. Okay, listen to this, Section 3 of the Constitution. New states may be admitted by the Congress. New states may be admitted by the Congress into this union, but no new state shall be formed or erected within the jurisdiction of any other state, nor any state be formed by the junction of two or more states or parts of a state without the consent of the legislators of the states concerned, as well as Congress. Basically, what they're saying is we're not going to have the same situation as the state of Israel and Palestine. And if we think about doing it, then we have to have the consent of all the government officials that we're going to combine two states, or we're going to break off one state and make that another state. We're going to make part of North Carolina slightly part of South Carolina. You know what? We're going to combine South Carolina and North Carolina and just call it Carolina. No one's going to do that because all of our states have very, very vast history. And when people are born and raised in those states, they just love their state. Okay. Most people love their states. So again, this is something that I read and I was like, this is very interesting. So we don't have the same problems as other people. It's kind of similar to the situation in Ukraine and Russia. Because don't forget, Ukraine are the ones who founded the Soviet Union. And then came all of these other countries that was joined under the banner of the Soviet Union. But essentially, Ukraine started the Soviet Union, but Russia has always been one of the biggest European countries, essentially. But now, who knows what's going on? Russia is trying to overtake Ukraine and absorb Ukraine into Russia. Who knows? But this is why we have done this. Okay, let me move on. United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a what? A Republican form of government, not a democracy, not a democratic, a Republican form of government, and shall protect each of them against invasion and on application of legislator or executive against domestic violence. America is a republic and not a democracy. Let me help you to understand that a bit better, family. In a true democracy, when we, the people, are lobbying for laws, bills, legislations to be passed, that means that every single citizen will have the right to vote on that piece of legislation. We will have the right to vote on that piece of legislation. But since we are in a republic, we have representatives that we elect, and some corporations select, that we elect into office, like the president of the United States, okay? Those political parties select who they want to run for president, right? They select, and then we elect, but we don't have a say-so of who their running mate is. Guess what, family? We don't have a say-so once they in the presidential office of who they select to be in their cabinet. We don't have that power. We were like, oh man, we don't want Mark Zuckerberg for the urban house of development. We don't want Steve Jobs, who's the Secretary of Department of Labor. These guys are tech giants. What they doing? What they know about the Department of Labor? They're outsourcing their jobs to India and China. What are you talking about? You see what I'm saying, family? So in a true democracy, we will vote on damn near everything. We will probably have 256-bit encryption to 512-bit encryption, right? And you probably have to do biometric if we did everything electronically, right? Because we would like to believe we live in an advanced society, but when you go over to Japan and Korea, we're about 10 years behind. But nonetheless, family, we live in a republic where we elect representatives. That's why every two years, you have to select and elect your senators. Every 2 to 4 years, I forgot the number, but you have to select and elect your senators. Right? That's why all of these people want you to vote all the damn time. And once they are in office, they can select whoever they want, and they don't need your approval because you selected them. This is politics 101. But anyway, I digress. Let's get into some of the things that Kamala Harris was saying on this interview with Dana Bash of CNN. I thought it was quite hilarious, in my opinion, because it just speaks to what we've seen from Kamala Harris thus far. And I'll let you come up with your own conclusions.
Where you stand on some key policy issues. Energy is a big one. When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Fracking, as you know, is a pretty big issue, particularly in your must-win state of Pennsylvania.
Sure.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020 that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So
did a CNN lead interviewer just challenge Kamala Harris of what she stated in 2020? Family, just bear with me. I just want to go back. I want you to hear for yourself. Okay, here we go.
As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward. I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed. I believe it is very important that we take seriously.
Your values have changed. Family, why do politicians lie so damn much? It's okay to be human. Listen, I change my mind all the time. Well, Black Logic, you said this 2 years ago. Okay, with more information, with more statistical information, with more data, with more research, with more reading, with more gauging from the people, I have changed my stance. Yes, I have changed my stance. I see that the American people do not want me to ban fracking. So I'm siding with the American people. I'm the president of the American people. Why don't politicians just say, yes, I've changed my stance? She's saying that her values have not changed. Yes, your freaking values have changed when we're talking about fracking. Yeah, it changed. It's okay. God damn it. I'm just tired of these damn politicians.
What we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion.
I swear, family, I did not want to go on a rant. I swear, I did not want to get motivated. I didn't want to get charged up, but this is really throwing me through a loop. The only thing that the interview was doubled down, say, hey, did your stance change on fracking? And the only thing Kamala Harris said, yes, according to what the American people want, I have changed my stance. But instead of that, she tripled down and said, oh, my values haven't changed. Now she's talking about, do I want to hear these lies? I'm just going to back it up a little bit so you can hear the poppycock, the lies, the treacherous nature of politicians. And this is not even directly at Kamala Harris. This is all these goddamn lieticians out here. Shit.
And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what
we can do what we can do. What?
Let's be clear. My values have not changed. I
Okay, I won't do it again. I'm sorry, family.
believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that,
we must do what we must do so we can guard against what's a crisis against the environment. What? What'd she say?
I believe it is very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard against what is a clear crisis in terms of the climate. And to do that, we can do what we have accomplished thus far. The Inflation Reduction Act, what we have done to invest, by my calculation, over probably $1 trillion over the next 10 years, investing in a clean energy economy. What we've already done, creating over 300,000 new clean energy jobs. That tells me, from my experience as vice president, we can do it without banning fracking. In fact, Dana, excuse me, I cast the tie-breaking vote that actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay.
Lord, have mercy on my soul. Family. And Dana or Dana, whatever. I'm just gonna call her Dana Bash. I've been calling her Dana Bash for years. Why didn't Kamala Harris just say, I changed my stance? That's it. I got one more clip for you, family. I swear that was just, it was painful to hear it again. Anyway.
You have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn Black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about some foreign policy issues.
So Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, got her position because President Joe Biden knew that she was South Indian and possibly black, possibly or allegedly black. And he knew that was going to galvanize the black vote for his sure victory to become president. Now that Kamala Harris is running for president and you are being interviewed by a very, famous CNN anchor, Dana Bash, and she asks you, basically, what is your stance on what Donald Trump said about your race? This was an opportunity for her to clear the air and basically state that I'm both black and I'm South Indian. My mother is South Indian. I'm Hindu. And my father is a black Jamaican from Jamaica. But she didn't take that route, family. She looked at Dana Bash, same old tie playbook. Next question. Because she didn't want to hurt her voting base. She didn't want to hurt her Asian voting base. She wanted to keep black people muddled and confused about what her race is. Or rather, there's certain organization, the Divine Nine, there's certain chapters, the Divine Nine, is propagating and exuding that she's a black woman. And again, family, I don't know. Right, her father never came out and state that I'm a black Jamaican. And why am I saying black Jamaican? Because your country does not dictate your race. And I'm not even saying her race makes any difference to me. It really doesn't. I'm about the damn policies, okay? I'm about the damn policy. I can care less about somebody's race at this particular point because we played that race game with Obama and black people still ended up with jack and nothing. Black people ended up with nothing from Obama. So when it comes to those regards, race at this point, family, don't mean anything. But she could have really cleared the air when it came to her ethnicity, when it came to her quote unquote race. Oh yeah, I'm mixed race. I'm South Indian. I'm a black Jamaican. But we didn't get that.
Surprised. People might be surprised to hear that you have never interacted with him, met him face to face. That's going to change soon. But what I want to ask you about is what he said last month. He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any?
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. Let's talk about.
Lord. Family, please, I'm losing it. I took a hiatus. I don't know if you guys noticed that. I took some time off because I had to clear my head when it came to politics, because these damn politicians, man. Lord. And I'm not saying Donald Trump is any better. I'm not. Because again, if nothing's on the table for foundational Black Americans, then miss me with all the rhetoric. Miss me with all of this. But I will say it's stakingly painful, funny. It's kind of I'm in this weird space where we have to depend on these politicians to see if they're really going to do something, because you have to apply pressure to these people for them to do anything. And some people think that you have to, oh, well, the black grassroots or the black community doesn't have, the political, the monetary capital to sway these politicians to support their campaigns in order to get anything for our people. But why do they ask for our vote? Why do they pander to the black community for our vote? Because again, breaking down, if some of you guys are just joining, breaking down the electoral votes versus the national popular vote and understand how conflicted and contradictory that whole situation is, it is very influential by the way of the national vote to influence the electors who hold the electoral votes to then vote for the candidate that you guys want to be voted for. Because I did show this, and this is coming from archives.gov. Excuse me, I'm trying to find this. Here we go. This is from archives.gov, and I know it's very, very confusing. And I'm going to read it one more time. It is important to remember that the president is not chosen by a national popular vote. Nope. The electoral college vote determines the winner, not the statistical plurality or majority a candidate may have in the national popular vote totals, just like Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. But electoral votes are awarded on the basis of the popular vote in each state. Wow. Nationalarchives.gov. By the way, and don't forget, the way we vote is referenced from the Constitution. So the founding fathers have done this. And this is why you have to understand that we live in the republic and not a democracy, because in a democracy, you won't have this contradictory, confusing conundrum of the way and how we count votes and the way we vote. Democracy, straight line and sinker. If majority of the people in the United States of America vote for Kamala Harris, then she would be president. If majority of the American people vote for Donald Trump, then Donald Trump will be president. Plain and simple. But we live in a republic. We live in a republic. We live in a republic. So when these politicians, and most likely the Democrats, and those who are democratically affiliated, talk about, well, it's the democracy as we know it. I'm like, did anyone read the freaking Constitution? They have all these political pundits. They have all these political researchers and analysis, and people are talking about the democracy. Well, you know, America is ran as a democratic republic. No. If the foundation of America is built off a constitution, then we're not a democracy. Now, if anything, I would say that America is a socialist republic because we have a lot of social programs. Other than that, I don't see a democracy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me see what you guys are saying. We see Peter inside the room. Nice to see you. Vol says she's a lawyer and she's not that smart. I agree. I wouldn't want her to represent me in a misidentity case of murder or grand larceny or theft, or I stole something from the corner store. I wouldn't even want her to represent me if I stole a Snickers bar from the corner store. I wouldn't want Kamala Harris to represent me because that was totally confusing. This say you change your stance. That's why certain people can't be politicians. That's why a lot of people, and I'm not stating me, that's why they like Donald Trump, because he sounds like an everyday guy. You know, he just says what he thinks. He doesn't ramble through these political enclaves of statements to be presided over the American people to sway you one way or another, or simply confuse the hell out of you. He doesn't do that. And that's why I could never be president. They said prior to 2020, Black Logic, your stance on fracking, that you were going to ban all fracking. Yeah, I was going to do that. Yeah, I was going to do that because I thought it was a threat to the environment. But when I saw what it was going to do to the American people and the loss of jobs that we have, that we can implement, you know, the Green New Deal and keep fracking and keep those jobs in certain areas like West Virginia where they're doing mining and all these other things, and they don't have any other source of revenue, yeah, I'm not going to do a ban on fracking. I'm going to keep fracking, but I may implement safeguards that don't cost the employer any other money, but for the people themselves, okay, dealing with, their health and things of that nature. I've changed my stance because I want the American people to live well. That's where I would be at. I don't know why they just won't say that. I've changed my stance. Ms. Lewis states her father isn't a Black Jamaican. At best, her father is biracial. I actually went over this. I think I went over this in my Kamala edition, where I went into her background, and her father has never, ever stated that he was a Black Jamaican. Some people said he looks Jamaican and Hindu, like Ms. Lewis was stating here that, she could be biracial. And again, I'm kind of off the race kick. I kind of just want to do, I just wanted to do a breakdown, because that's kind of the thing that unfortunately a lot of Black people are basing their votes off, the same way we did with Obama. We always want to see a Black this, a biggity black in office. And I get it. You want representation. I want representation. Here's the question, though, I have for our people. Can you be represented in a political office by policies? Let's take, for instance, Donald Trump said, you know what? I'm going to make Black Americans a protected class. I'm going to implement a federal hate crime law that protects foundational Black Americans from hate crimes. Also, I'm going to wipe away student debt for all foundational Black Americans. I'm going to also make foundational Black Americans tax exempt. I love that representation. Would I vote for Kamala Harris? And she's not going to do anything for Black people. Hell no, I won't. Tangibles is the key here, family. Tangibles. Tangibles is the key. Not how we feel, not how somebody look, because just as well Dana Bash asked Kamala Harris, did she change her stance based on information? An intelligent person would say, if I knew what I know now back then, my answer would have been different. You get what I'm trying to say? Have you guys ever made a decision? Have you guys ever made a decision based off of current information or based off of old information and not having, the most relevant current information at hand? So you made a decision based off old information that you thought was present, that you thought was timely. So you changed your stance. I don't get it, because I have to do it, family. I have to remind people of Kamala Harris, and that's why I wanted to point out that clip about what she was saying about fracking and how she's so damn confused about what the hell is going on. You guys have to remember this.
Do you support reparations for Black people?
Well, listen. Again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, Black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing the Lift Act. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of Black families who are in poverty.
So by default, it affects Black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans.
no, if you look at the reality
the
of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal, it will directly benefit Black children, Black families, Black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen. The reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No. Because whatever benefits that Black family will benefit that community and society as a whole in the country. Right?
That is what she said. That is what Kamala Harris has stated. Everybody gets the bag except Black people. Everybody gets protected except Black folk. You know, when Obama was in office, family, did you guys know that he gave Jewish Holocaust survivors millions of dollars, just as well as Joe Biden did? I showed you guys that before, right? Let me. I'm just going to pop it up here very quickly. It's going to come from a .gov site. You know how I operate. Give me 1 second. Bear with me here. Now, at first, the headline doesn't really get you. This is coming from house.gov by the way of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Okay. Obama administrator awards $12 million for assistance to Holocaust survivors. But then I highlighted a couple of things here. They're approximately $2.5 million per year over the 5 years. And here's the thing. I want you to think about not only our ancestors, not only the survivors of Jim Crow, not only the survivors of the civil rights movement, but now today and how majority of our people are living. These are our mothers and fathers, our teachers and our mentors. They deserve to live their remaining years in dignity, and this award will help make that hope a reality. So when Obama was talking about hope that we can believe in, hope that we can change, he was giving Black folk hope. Oh, he gave us hope. But he was giving other people millions of dollars. He was giving other people millions of dollars while he was giving Black people hope. Before I leave you guys here, I've been on a minute. I try to limit this to 30, 45 minutes, but nonetheless, I want to ask anyone who may be, in support of Kamala Harris, or I won't say Kamala, I'm say Obama. When the last time you took a wallet full of hope and bought groceries? When the last time you took a wallet full of hope and bought a car? When the last time you took out a loan on hope? There's one clip I do want to show you guys because it speaks volumes to that whole hope and change and joy, all this feel-good mess that the Democrats always feed the Black folk. And I'm not a Republican, but again, you got to speak power to those who pander to you for your vote so they can stay empowered. Let me see if I can find this clip so I can give you how I feel about hope just as well as this young man here. Okay, this as well as this young man here. Let me see if I can get this queued up.
Where it's going. That's where it's going. That's just. Ain't no hope. I don't give them fucking hope, man. Hope you gonna pay your goddamn rent. Hope your car work. Come on, man. Ain't no but bullshit.
No, I'm just saying. I think a lot of black people are being brainwashed.
It ain't got nothing to do with them.
Okay.
And here, if you say I'd like to go to Paris this year, but I can't afford, you just told 75 trillion cells to see to you don't get to Paris. Huh? That's who you are. And when you find that out, when you find that out, when they told me I had the worst cancer you can find, I told my son, Doc, I said, don't show that to your mother, till after your sister get married. Then I gave it a report. How could they do this? I said, bitch, you better get out of here. You think I'm leaving this pussy here for your high school sweetheart? You out your mind. I ain't going nowhere. I know I'm not going nowhere. If you hope don't work. You never heard no rich, powerful motherfucker say hope. Hope I'll win the war, but a fool. The real folks know they're going to win the war before they start, except they don't count in the universe. Universe. There's no such thing as hope.
One of the greatest philosophers of our time, Dick Gregory. I love that piece about hope because this is what Obama was selling to black people. Hope this, and people are, oh man, it made me feel good. It made me do this. Brother, you feeling good and being broke. Brother, you feeling good and not having a job. What are you going to do with it? Tangibles, family. Tangibles. Thank you all for joining me here this afternoon. I see you guys on the next one. Be one.